I'm really curious because, this was probably very emotionally draining, like a very trippy experience to make. But emotionally, what was the most challenging part to get right for you?
The fever that overtook that country, the way in which they embraced this, what they conceived as an utterly modern idea, the way in which it was a completely different mindset. I mean, coming out of the First World War, the horror of that war, and then embracing this violent ideology. I think, getting that kind of national atmosphere across. And it was the first time the the masses took center stage. Prior to that, it was really about individual kings and queens and whatever, and but this was the population, the masses taking center stage, and that was really interesting and difficult to do on a budget too.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Although if anybody understood the power of leveraging media on a budget, it was Mussolini.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to talk about the women of this because I don't know. Mussolini is obviously this figure who like is secondary of villains in the Grey Room. He's
Yeah.
like the man in the shadows, and then there's the women behind the man in the shadows who
Yeah.
kind of like make and unmake him in some ways. And I am curious, why was it important to show so much of his physicality in the relationships?
Because I felt that, I entered the show trying to figure out what fascism is, right? It was a word that we bandied about as teenagers. The police were fascists, and our teachers were fascists if they gave us a detention. So we trivialized the word, and with the emergence of that word back into our culture. It felt important to try and take responsibility and understand really what that word means. I'm getting to the answer to your question. And what I discovered really in the making of the show was that it seems fascism is the politicization of toxic masculinity, right? And so it works both on an intensely personal level, it works on a domestic level, it works on a sexual level, and it also works on a social, political, national level. And it's like it goes right the way through. And so it plays out in all of those relationships, as well as on the national, political, global scale.
There's this one moment that stands out so much to me, and I think it's brilliant. It's also, unfortunately, one of my favorite songs, and that is the Elvis song. And I've actually interviewed you before for like Darkest Hour, and I know you talk about like you do a lot of the music and the sound planning in advance. So
Yeah.
like, when did that enter the conversation for you?
Very early. And at one point, I even I'd forgotten this, but at one point, I even had the idea that Mussolini was going to put on an Elvis suit and start singing the song himself. In the end, Luca was like, "Really? I'm not sure that that's really going to work." And it was interesting because we had to always make sure that we didn't turn him into too much of a clown. But that song, I think what we wanted to do, I mean, often period dramas and the ones I've made are somehow put the film feels at a distance, it's behind this wall of time. And in this particular piece, it felt important to keep dragging it back to the here and now. This happened then, but it's also happening now. And so that was the reason behind for instance, the use of the Elvis track, but also, you know, the reason behind having him talking directly to the audience in first person to reach through the screen and try and shake up the audience a little bit as we entertain them.